and always to you are King. Bless and let there be love in our home, the marriage experience ordained by you alone. Marriage experience. The marriage experience ordained by you alone.
Welcome to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakule and Bosade Santos, where they explore what it means to cultivate a God-centric marriage by delivering realistic and biblical wisdom, pointers, and insights from couples and individuals on the marriage journey. Join them today as they share some insights. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Marriage Experience program. We're honestly always so glad to have you tuning and to spend this hour with us. Now, if you're regular, you know how we do it here. Real chats for real people whilst navigating the beautiful and sometimes challenging reality of everyday married life together.
Absolutely. And if you just stumbled across us tonight whilst flipping through the stations, please stay with us. There are no coincidences here. This might just be the exact conversation or word of encouragement you need to hear today.
Absolutely. Now, if you're new to the Marriage Experience family, a huge welcome to you. We really appreciate you joining us. So grab a drink of your choice, get comfortable, and come as you truly are, your true self. What we're diving into tonight might just change how you look at your relationship in your marriage.
Absolutely. As we always say here, we are not perfect marriage experts with all the answers.
No way.
Our anchor is the blueprint of God's word on marriage, because a great relationship doesn't happen just like that. And it doesn't survive on human effort alone either.
Spot on. It takes intentionality. This is when we keep God right at the center of everything that we do. Using these practical tools that we're talking about and real world-class tools He gives us from the scripture. Remember, that is our basis. Here, we have plenty of grace because we're all work in progress. So don't go anywhere. We'll dive straight into it right after this quick break.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakule and Bosade Santos.
And if you were with us last week, you'll remember we started a very honest, very gentle conversation about what happens when the house gets a little quieter. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about seasons changing, children growing, responsibilities shifting, making room for each other again.
That's right. We looked at that shifting season where you transition from being incredibly efficient co-managers of a very busy household to looking across the room and rediscovering the marriage in front of you. And we've both changed over the last 20 or 30 years, haven't we? We asked the question, who exactly am I married to now? Where are we? Who are we? Where are we going?
I know what you mean. Not because you've become somebody else, but because neither of us is 30 anymore.
True.
And we talked about how we often arrive at this stage at completely different speeds. One ready for adventure and the other quietly craving a long nap. And we realize that's not a crisis. It's just a beautiful translation problem.
Exactly. And I thank you for reminding everyone that we're not 30 anymore.
Yeah. But, you know, it's true. And when you think of it, you don't think exactly the same, right? You don't carry pressure the same. You enjoy different things. Your body changes. Your priorities change. Even your energy changes.
And thankfully, so does our wisdom as well. And sometimes I wonder whether, one of the mistakes couples make is assuming that because we've been married for a long time, because we've got the years and the number of badges we have, we already know each other, and that's not true. We assume that because we think that it's knowing our spouse is something you complete. It's a process, and then you have a rubber stamp, and they have an approval that now you know your spouse. But it's like a moving target, and I don't think that's knowing everything about your spouse actually does ever happen, because people don't stop growing. Just like I said about the moving target, sometimes they're growing quietly, sometimes they're growing painfully, sometimes they're growing joyfully, and that's still growing.
And so how do we move from a partnership that's simply useful to a companionship that's filled with fresh delight? So today we are moving from noticing those differences to actually building through them. How do we practically design a shared routine for this next chapter that honors both people?
I think this is where couples can feel a bit, maybe a bit stuck if they're not careful. They realize life has changed. They realize that the marriage is in a different season. They may even recognize that they'd like to reconnect more intentionally, and then immediately feel pressure to come up with a grand plan. That's that part of us that we're just fixers. And in trying to seek that grand plan, it's as though the answer must be some sort of 5-year marital development strategy. Suddenly, someone's talking about bucket list and quarterly date nights, or a shared vision board, or matching walking shoes, and a spreadsheet for emotional intimacy.
That's something.
That does not work. And before you know it, this poor marriage well, not poor in that sense, that the marriage that's been analyzed and overanalyzed is exhausted again. But truly, I think that's where some couples begin to lose heart. They assume that if they haven't been very intentional for a while, then the only way forward is to become intensely intentional all at once. That's that fixing spirit again. And for a lot of people, that doesn't feel life-giving. It actually feels performative. It feels like you're just going through the act.
And that's the word, performative. It can start to feel like you're trying to produce a version of closeness rather than gently making room for it. And I think this season calls for something steadier than performance. It calls for a pace, a pace, because it's repeatable and there's no drama, no theatrics about it. It doesn't depend on everyone being in a perfect mood. It doesn't require money or elaborate planning. It's simply a way of saying, how do we want to live together now? And perhaps even, what kind of marriage do we want our ordinary week to reflect? Not our anniversary, not our holiday, not the version of us that appears in photographs or what? Tuesday evening, just our regular evening marriage, and that's where the truth lives, really, because anyone can look connected over a nice meal once every 3 months. The deepest question is, what's the tone of the home when it's just both of you and no one's visiting?
Exactly. Questions like, is there ease between us? Do we know how to sit in the same room without irritation? Or do we make room for conversations? Do we know what helps the other person feel considered? Or questions like, have we built any habits that actually protect the relationship from becoming a collection of chores and television and sort, which may step on a few toes, like it stepped on mine as I said it. But truly, I think this is where practicality really does matter, because vague good intentions are not enough. We should spend more time together. That statement, it sounds lovely, but it can disappear into thin air if nobody asks what that actually means in reality. What does that actually means in real life?
Absolutely, because for one couple, spending time together might mean taking a walk after dinner twice a week. For another, it might mean coffee in the kitchen before the day starts. And yet another couple, it just might mean choosing one evening where the television stays off and they actually talk.
Television and the phones as well.
Absolutely. And for some other people, it may just be doing errands together and then stretching their outing, maybe to go have lunch or something. And some couples, though they may dismiss this small cycles as insignificant. They think, well, that's not very exciting. It's just coffee, it's just a walk, it's just sitting outside for 20 minutes. But marriages are not usually shaped by one exaggerated gesture. They are shaped by what happens repeatedly, repeatedly and gently, which matters. Because if one spouse suddenly announces, right, from this day forward, every Friday at 7 p.m., we shall embark on a compulsory intimacy enhancing outing.
That sounds great, doesn't
That's
it?
romance. That's romance. Just it will never recover.
Yeah, it may never come back. Yes.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakole and Bosade Santos.
Now, some people need a softer invitation than that. They need space to say something like, well, that sounds nice, but maybe not every Friday, and perhaps without the phrase intimacy enhancing outing. So perhaps part of the building rhythm is accepting that what works for your marriage needs to fit in with actual personalities,
Absolutely.
not an idealized version of yourself. If one of
I
you,
think that's the real thing there. Being true to yourself.
yes, being
Finding out
having the
what
systems
works
as a
for both
reflection of
you.
yourself.
Yeah,
Yes. That's not a promising. It's not a promising setting for tenderness when we are manufacturing these times.
Not usually. So maybe the wiser question to ask would be, when are we most ourselves, and when do we tend to talk well? What environment makes it easier for us to connect rather than merely coexist?
And of course, those questions reflect the fact that the focus is on the people
on the
themselves.
two of you.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the most practical questions that you can ask as a couple. That is, what environment makes it easier for us to connect, as a couple? And it's not a matter of what should connected couples do, but what helps us as a couple feel close. Now, for some people, closeness grows through conversation, and for others, it grows through doing something together. Some it's laughter, some it's unhurried prayer, and some it's physical affection. It's simply feeling like they are being noticed rather than managed for other people. And this last one, being managed, that's a big one in long marriage, because there's a difference between being coordinated and being cherished. Coordination says, I know what needs doing and I know your role in it. But cherishing says, I see you. I'm glad you're here. I haven't reduced you to a function.
And I like that. That last statement you made. I haven't reduced you to function. You're not a job. You're not a responsibility in that
You're
sense.
not a role that I need to perform.
And that's such an important distinction here, because one of the dangers of long-term busyness is that spouses can become incredibly useful to one another and not always especially tender. Not because love has gone cold, more often because tenderness has been crowded out by urgency, by KPIs, as we often see here. And tenderness often needs smaller doors than we think. It may be a hand on the shoulder while passing in the kitchen. It may be a proper greeting instead of a half sentence from another room. It may be making the coffee the way they like it without commentary about how much milk is apparently too much milk, for instance.
Yeah. Those things really matter, honestly, because they are magic tricks, if I may, not because they change the emotional climate of a home, but because they communicate warmth, attention. They say, you are not just the person I've built a life with. You are the person I'm still glad to be building it with. The process is still on. Your lives are still going. And, this season also gives couples the permission to ask a question they may not have had the time to ask before. And it could be, what do you enjoy now? Not what did we enjoy in, say, 2004. No, not what other couples enjoy now. What makes us laugh now? What feels restful now? What kind of outing still sounds appealing, and what honestly sounds exhausting? What do we want more of? And personally, these I value, because then it doesn't lock me up in a time capsule, being that this is how someone knows me, and so that's how I am. I may not really be interested in a lot of those other things before. And this happens to bring us to a point that we can honestly say, what is it that we are ready to stop pretending that we enjoy?
And that's stopping that pretense. It's a freeing conversation, actually, because there's no price for dragging a marriage through activities both secretly dread. Why? Because you know what? Hey, this is what we do. This is what we've been doing for the past 20 years, 30 years. So that's what brings us joy. No. And then you put yourself in a situation where you're doing the right thing, quote unquote, but you're not actually really enjoying it. And sometimes rediscovering the marriage means allowing it to become more honest, more honest about energy, more honest about interest, more honest about what this stage of life can realistically hold, more honest about what each person needs in order to feel loved and to feel peaceful, at home, which means rhythm is not really about filling the diary. It's about shaping the atmosphere. An atmosphere where friendship can breathe, where affection doesn't feel like an afterthought. It's or even a planned thought, if you know what I mean, where conversation has somewhere to land, where rest is not always separate from connection, for instance.
And of course, if couples can begin to build even a little of that, not perfectly, but sincerely, something changes. The marriage stops feeling like the part of life that gets whatever time is left over, not merely maintained or functional, lived in with care. And I think that's what is really important, that the marriage it's not just something you are doing, but it's actually something you are living. And you are living it, paying attention to it, and not just the days are just flitting past, because one thing one can think about is that if you take that care, right, that's where we begin to actually get close as a couple. Because once the marriage starts to feel inhabited again, one final question, surfaces, and that's, what kind of gift can this season become if we actually receive it well?
As we've talked about today, I keep sort of coming back to the fact that this season of marriage can be very easy to misunderstand. If couples find themselves asking new questions, if the house feels different, if the routines have changed, if the relationship suddenly needs more attention than it used to, and it's not just the volume of attention, but the type of attention, it can be tempting to interpret that as a sign that something has gone wrong. But that's not the case. It's not necessarily true at all. Sometimes it's not that the marriage is in trouble. It's simply that the marriage has arrived somewhere new. And like any new season, it needs a new language. It needs patience. It needs curiosity. It needs grace. It needs a new way. It needs a new set of rules, which keep changing. Not rules, ways of doing things.
And I think that's actually the crux of what we're talking about: to learn to encounter or to experience this new season from fresh eyes, a new set or a new way of approaching the marriage, and a new way of living in the marriage. Because what we've really been talking today about is about being attentiveness, and the willingness to notice that over the years, and even after raising the kids and work and responsibilities, routine, the general family life, the marriage itself may be asking for fresh attention, not because it's broken, but because it's alive.
Yeah, it needs a change of oil. It needs new oil, and living things need tending, not in a fearful way, but in an honest way. A marriage can be faithful, committed, stable, deeply worth asking and thanking God for, really, and still benefit from being gently revisited in a new season by asking, what do we already have that we've stopped noticing? Because we are very future-minded people, aren't we? We're always looking ahead, the next goal, the next responsibility, the next challenge, the next thing to improve. We want to fix things, and we just keep coming back to that. People who want to fix things to make things work.
And I mean, itself, that's not a bad thing, because it's helped many of us to build our careers and raise families and keep moving forward. But sometimes I wonder whether that same mindset quietly follows us into marriage. We could become so focused on what still needs attention that we forget to notice what years have also quietly built.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakole and Bosade Santos.
Now, I don't think anyone gets married dreaming about having a marriage that's settled. You dream about what excitement looks like, what adventure looks like, what building a life looks like, what creating memories look like. You don't stand at the altar thinking, I can't wait until we instinctively know who's making the tea without discussing it. That's not real life. Or knowing without saying a word that if one of you disappears into the garage for 10 minutes, they're not avoiding you. They're just looking for the screwdriver that was definitely in the drawer yesterday.
Absolutely. And those little things would have sounded terribly ordinary when we first got married. But, one thing I've been thinking about is that phrase, shared life, because when you're newly married, you're building one. When you've been married for a long time, you're living inside one. And you're no longer imagining what your story might become. You're surrounded by it.
True.
You have history. You have memories. You have difficult chapters you somehow got through. You have ordinary Tuesdays. Why do we keep referring to Tuesdays? You have, I think there's something about Tuesdays. Anyway, you have those Tuesdays that nobody else remembers, but somehow become part of who you both are together. And maybe that's why I like today's title, The Marriage We Have Now. Not the marriage we imagined when we were 25, and not a marriage we compare with someone else's. Not even the marriage we had 10 years ago. The marriage we have now.
Today, what does it look like today? Because every marriage has different versions of itself, even in itself. Then a version that was learning each other, and then you move on to the version of raising children, and then through that you have the version of surviving pressure, a version that carried grief, a version that celebrated answered prayers. All these versions, they're all real, but none of them stays forever. And if we're always longing for a previous version, we may overlook the quiet beauty of the current one. And I think that's something we do in life generally. We remember the energy of our youth. We remember the excitements of firsts, first time we're doing things. We remember the noise of family life. But then memory has a funny habit of editing out those tiredness, those times in our life.
And we remember family dinners. We don't always remember helping with homework at 9 o'clock, trying to find a missing school shoe, wondering who forgot to sign the permission slip, or discovering at bedtime that tomorrow is somehow dressed as a Roman soldier day. And you've got approximately 12 minutes to become the costume designer. So when we look back, if we're being honest, there were beautiful moments, there were demanding moments, And this season also has its own beautiful moments too.
Yes, and I wonder if that's one of the gifts that becomes that comes with maturity. You know, that becomes something that we can consider as a mature marriage. We stop expecting every season to give you the same things. We stop asking the season to behave like the last one. When we were younger, we loved discovering who we were. Now, I find myself appreciating who you've become. For instance, you know, those aren't the same thing, but discovery does have its own excitement. Recognition has its own depth.
I like that recognition, because that's really what we're talking about today. Recognizing the marriage that's quietly been taking shape while we've been busy living it. And, you know, once you start recognizing it, you begin noticing things that perhaps you took for granted. Not perfection, not a flawless relationship, but something steadier, something that only time can produce, the gifts that only years of faithful marriage can give, and how we learn to see them before we rush on to the next thing. Because I think one of the most, or one of the most important gifts is, or even maybe the primary gift, if I may, is something that couples rarely talk about, and that's the quiet confidence of being completely known.
And I don't think we do either, because when you're first married, so much of the relationship is discovery. You know, you're discovering so much, and you're learning each other's habits, learn about families, which uncle is which aunt is not the kind of aunt you want to connect with all the time. You're learning personalities as well, expectations, even the little quirks that nobody tells you about before the wedding. And sometimes they don't know those quirks themselves. Marriage has a remarkable way of introducing you to yourself. You think you're a very patient person until someone loads the dishwasher in a way that completely defies engineering.
But then that's part of growing together. You know, in the early years, you're discovering one another. In later years, you're learning how to live well with what you've already discovered. And I think that's a different kind of intimacy, not the excitement of finding something new every day. It's the comfort of no longer needing to explain everything.
And that's beautifully put. You know, there are things I don't have to translate anymore. Sometimes you can tell from the way I walk through the door that, you know, what kind of day it has been, or what sort of phone call I've just had. Not because you're reading my mind, but simply because you've lived beside me long enough to recognize me.
And I sometimes think that we underestimate how reassuring that is. You know, the world asks us to explain ourselves all the time, at work, in public, even in friendships sometimes. But home becomes one of the few places where someone already knows the backstory. And that is a rare gift, because they know that when I'm unusually quiet, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm upset with them. They know when I'm thinking, they know when I'm tired, and they know when I'm trying to solve something in my head, and also they know when to leave it alone.
Yes, and that's what you call wisdom. And but that wisdom wasn't downloaded overnight. It wasn't. It was earned. You know, conversation after conversation, misunderstanding after misunderstanding,
Absolutely.
apology after apology, forgiveness after forgiveness. Because sometimes we romanticize long marriages as though couples simply wake up one day perfectly understanding each other. And that doesn't happen. And you know, most understanding is hard won, and it takes time.
It really is very, very. And, you know, there were conversations that didn't go well, things that we misunderstood, moments where we realized, that's what she meant, you know, and I took it differently. But years later, you almost smile about them because they've become part of how you've learned each other. And maybe that's why mature marriage feels different. You stop expecting your spouse to think exactly like you. Instead, you begin to appreciate how they think.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakule and Bosade Santos.
And that's such an important distinction because appreciation is different from agreement. There are still things about you that surprise me, not in a sensational sense, I saw, but every so often, you'll react to something and I think, I didn't expect that. And then I remember that people don't stop growing because they've been married for 30 years. They're always growing.
That's encouraging. Sometimes we talk about being known as though it means we've got each other completely figured out. And I'm not sure that's even ever going to be possible. And maybe it shouldn't be. There's something that I personally feel is lovely about still being able to discover fresh parts of someone you've loved for years, almost like reading a favorite book again. The story hasn't changed, but you notice something you missed the first time.
I like that because long marriage isn't about reaching the end of the discovery. It's about changing the kind of discovery. And when you're young, you're discovering preferences. And then as the years go past, you're discovering character. You begin to notice things that only time reveals. Things like how someone responds when life disappoints them, how they carry grief, how they celebrate each other's other people's successes and even each other's successes as well. How they've softened over the years, all become braver, all gentler, all more patient. Now, those are things that can't really, one can't really know in the first few years. Time, which is what you need, reveals a person in ways that circumstances alone can never reveal.
And I wonder whether that's one of God's quiet gifts in marriage, not simply giving us someone to love, but giving us enough years to witness who that person is becoming. And maybe that's why this season feels different. We're no longer only living with memories, we're living with evidence. Right? Evidence of God's faithfulness, evidence of resilience, evidence that love can mature instead of merely surviving.
And maybe that's why this kind of love feels quieter, not because it's weaker, because it's settled. It no longer needs to prove itself every day.
And not settled in a way, not
stale.
settled in a negative way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful place to pause because if one of those gifts of marriage we have now is being deeply known, there's another gift that sits right beside it. It's the freedom that comes from no longer trying to be someone that you're not. And that's an interesting place to go next because perhaps one of the greatest gifts of a long marriage is that over time, home becomes one of the few places where you can simply be without performing. You can be who you really are. Yes, if you have hair, that is.
One of the things that you were talking about is that one of the gifts of long marriage is that you stop performing. But I think many couples still do. Not all at once, of course, but somewhere along the way, you become less concerned with presenting your best self every minute of the day. Like, you know what I'm going to say, like farting. And that's probably a relief for both people because if we're honest, when you're first married, you're still editing yourself a little and you suddenly discover an extraordinary interest in, putting things away immediately. And somewhere or somehow, every meal is plated like you're expecting restaurant inspectors. You think this is how we'll always live. Then 6 months later, you're eating toast over the sink because you both had one of those days. And strangely enough, the marriage survives because eventually life becomes more important than appearances. And the longer you're married, the more ordinary life actually you actually share as a couple. I mean, you don't wait for anniversaries or holidays. You wait for. We're talking about the regular evenings, the cold mornings, the unexpected bills, waiting rooms, your DIY projects that take much longer than you expected. And, you're just discovering halfway through that neither of you actually knows what you're doing.
And that's been known to happen. But it's those ordinary days that quietly build something. You stop needing every day to be memorable because the relationship itself has become familiar territory. And I wonder whether that's something younger couples sometimes misunderstand. You see familiarity as the opposite of romance because familiarity can become one of romance's strongest foundations. Not taking each other for granted. That's different from familiarity. I mean, the comfort of knowing that you don't have to earn your place in this person's life every morning. There's a world of difference between taking for granted and being safely known.
I like that. Being taken for granted feels invisible, but being safely known feels secure. And security changes how you love. You become less concerned with saying the perfect thing, more willing to admit that you're struggling, more comfortable saying, I don't know, or I got that wrong, or even I've changed my mind. These little sentences are harder when they're harder than people realize, especially if you've spent your working life needing to have answers. Sometimes the strangest thing you can bring home isn't certainty, but honesty. Or what? No, not necessarily strange. The strongest thing that you can bring is honesty, and honesty has a funny way of making a marriage lighter because pretending can
Pretending
be
is it is
exhausting.
exhausting. It really is. Pretending you're not tired in itself is tiring. Pretending something didn't hurt in itself hurts. Pretending you're coping better than you are, pretending you don't need help. Eventually, you realize that this is probably the one relationship where pretending costs more than telling the truth. And that's one of the reasons I appreciate mature marriages. There's often a gentleness about them, not because life has stopped being difficult, but because they've learned that they don't have to win every single conversation.
I've noticed that too. Sometimes you hear a couple who's been together for decades disagreeing, but there's less urgency about proving who's right. One of them will simply say, you know what, perhaps you're seeing something I'm not. And that sentence alone carries a lot of years behind it. Not every couple gets there automatically, but when they do, it's beautiful to watch because they're no longer protecting their pride quite so fiercely. They're protecting the relationship.
You're listening to the Marriage Experience Program with Ayakule and Bosade Santos.
I also think mature marriage gives you permission to laugh at yourselves. When you're younger, everything can feel consequential. You think, now we don't agree on this. What does that mean? Now, sometimes you just look at each other and think, we've really been having the same conversation for 25 years. And somehow we've both still convinced that we'll eventually convert the other person to see life the way we see life.
That is highly unlikely, but maybe that's another gift. You stop trying to create a copy of yourselves and you begin appreciating the person that God actually gave you, because marriage isn't God's project to make two identical people. It's his invitation for two different people to learn how to love well.
And perhaps that's why, the marriage we have now, which we're talking about, feels like such an important conversation. The marriage we have now has fewer illusions, but it also has more grace. It has less performance. It has more honesty. It has less proving, but it has more peace. And maybe that's what years of covenant faithfulness quietly produce. Not perfection, but a place where two people can increasingly rest in being known, being accepted, and continuing to choose one another.
I love how you put it that marriage is a place where two people can keep growing and rest in knowing each other
And being
also
known as well.
and being known and also being accepted and also continuing to choose one another.
Absolutely. And there's a profound relief that comes when we finally stop performing for our spouses. When you realize that you don't have to earn your place at the kitchen table every morning. there's something incredibly freeing about just being safely known in the home, in the marriage.
Absolutely. And that really is the ultimate comfort. And, you know, as we look at this beautiful, steady season of marriage where the frantic pace of raising families slows down and you realize you are wrapped in a safety that took decades to build, it mirrors our relationship with God so beautifully.
Oh, absolutely. You know, you look back at the difficult chapters, those quiet tears, the moments where you didn't know how you'd make it through, and then you realize He was the steady anchor holding both of us together. A long, faithful marriage is living evidence of a dependable God.
It truly is. So right now, if you are listening at home or driving together tonight, let's this worship track be a celebration of the years behind you and the grace of the season in front of you.
Now, here's a powerful, deeply moving version of a song that says everything we've been talking about. It wraps it all up. This is Tim Godfrey featuring the Fearless Community and Ebube with Dependable God.
Come and lift it up to the Father. Oh, Shana, Ria Sita, Niga Frando, Copos, Briate, Beleco, Sobriates. Hallelujah. Dependable, dependable God. It doesn't matter what comes my way, you are still God. Intentional God. Everything is working out for my good. I love to call you dependable God. It doesn't matter what comes my way, you are still my God. Oh, yeah. Intentional, you're so intentional about me, Jesus. I know that everything is working out for my good, and I will put my trust in you. I will make my boast in you. I will put my trust in you. Dependable God. Oh, Jesus. I will put all of my trust in only you. I will make this boast in only you. I will put my trust in you just because. Dependable God.
Now open your mouth, everybody, and begin to give God some praise.
Dependable God. It doesn't matter what comes my way. You are still God. We know you to be an intentional God. Everything, no. Everything is working out for my good. We know you to be a dependable God. It doesn't matter what comes my way. It doesn't matter what comes my way.
Jesus. One more time, say, I will put my trust in you. Yeah, boy, sure, told you that. I will make my boast in you. Yeah, I will put my trust in Jesus. You are dependable God. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but my trust, my boast, my hope is built on nothing else but Jesus, 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 Jesus. I can count on you, 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 Jesus. I will trust in you, Jesus. I will trust in you, Jesus. I will boast in you, Jesus. I will brag with you, Jesus. I will brag with you, Jesus. I will count on you, Jesus. I will count on you, Jesus. I will trust in you, Jesus. I will trust in you, Jesus. When everyone walks out on me, when everyone walks out on me, when hell breaks loose over me, I will depend on you, depend on you, rely on you, rely on you, depend on you, depend on you, rely on you, rely on you, depend on you, depend on you, rely on you, rely on you. I will put my trust Jesus, you are dependable God. Make it personal between you and God. Say, I will trust. I will put my trust in you. I will make my boast in you. I will put my trust in you. Dependable God. Dependable God. You are Jesus. Dependable God. I will depend on you, Jesus. Dependable God. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters but you. rely but you, Jesus. Reliable. My hope is built on nothing else but you. Reliable God. Intentional. Amado, shiadado, bayarasi. Kapurado, shaya. Woo. Thank you, Jesus. Dependable God.
What a powerful reminder. He truly is a dependable God. Through every shifting season, every mountain, and every quiet Tuesday morning, he remains completely faithful.
Oh, yes, it does. And you know, listening to those words, it brings us right back to the heart of our conversation today. When we look at our spouse after 20 or 30 or 40 or even 100 years, we're not just looking at a partner, we're looking at a living testimony of God's dependability.
Absolutely. We're looking at the person who stood by us through the hard chapters, the one who knows our deepest flaws and still chooses to stay. That isn't just human effort. That's the grace of a faithful God, woven quietly into the fabric of our ordinary lives.
So, as we enter the final part of our program today, we want to challenge you to look across the room and, in your mind, decide to stop managing, stop coordinating just for a moment, and just simply cherish the person who's there with you.
So, one question I'd like us to consider is, what is the one thing you can do tonight to show your spouse that they are safely known, deeply loved, and completely appreciated in the marriage you have right now?
You're listening to the Marriage Experience program with Ayakule and Bosade Santos.
And that brings us to the end of today's program. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the Marriage Experience right here on Heartsong Live, Scotland's first Christian station on DAB Digital.
If you want to catch the episode again or perhaps share it with someone else, we're live every Monday evening, and we also have a full replay for you on Wednesdays.
Now, the wonderful lineup on the station continues tonight as well. So up next, do stay tuned for Chatty Chappies at 8 p.m. And we also have Arise with Eloho later at 11 p.m.
And if you're tuning in for our Wednesday replay, make sure you stay with us for What's on Your Plate with Annette. That's a beautiful lifestyle show spotlighting everyday people doing incredible work in their communities.
Now, if the ministry here at Heartsong Live is a blessing to you, so please do consider supporting the station financially. You can easily do that by heading over to heartsonglive.co.uk/donate to help us keep broadcasting this encouragement.
We'd absolutely love to hear from you. Please drop us an email at mexperience@lidiosantos.com with your thoughts or questions. And if you're on YouTube, you can find our dedicated channel at Marriage Experience. Please do subscribe, turn on the notification bell so you are always updated when we drop a new program.
So a quick reminder to also download the Heartsong Live app. It really is the easiest way to access our program and all the other uplifting shows on the station wherever you are in the world.
And that's us for today on Marriage Experience. We look forward to being back with you again same time next week.
Until then, stay encouraged, keep growing, and always remember, whatever you're walking through, God is already there.
Have a truly, truly blessed week, everyone. God
Bless you.
Join Ayakule and Bosade again next week on the Marriage Experience program as they bring God's truth to help you build your marriage God's way. Till then, remember, marriage is God's idea and it is a good thing.
The Marriage Experience all day.